Welcome to Live Big. I'm David Grier. Today we are going to take a look at one of my dad's teachings from the oldest book in the Bible and learn what wisdom it has for trying times. Let's dig in.
Open your Bibles to the book of Job, and we are going to begin in the first chapter, and we're going to end up in the last chapter of Job. And it's going to take me a little bit longer than normal to unpack this, but it's super important that you stay with me until we get to the end. Again, Job chapter 1 and verse 1. And the Bible said there was a man in the land of Uz. Now, the book of Job is the oldest book in the entire Bible. Its text is so ancient that we have some words that are written in the book of Job that scholars can't quite figure out the exact meaning of those words because this book is so ancient. Many people think that Job was actually a contemporary of Abraham, but the major problem of the book is not so much what you probably heard. A lot of folk, when you think of Job, you just think of his suffering. Yeah, suffering was real, and that is in the book. But the major problem in the book of Job, again, is not so much his suffering, but Job's theology. Job had to deal with the fact that God did not always do things the way that Job thought he should. And this is why this book is so important to us today, because many of us are in the same situation. We're dealing with a God that doesn't do things the way we think he should do things. You know, some things in life are not easy. Some things in life you may not understand, but faith is trusting God even when it doesn't make sense. He said there was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job. So this book begins by introducing the main character. And the name Job, the meaning of this name, I think is going to surprise you. It literally means hostility. It literally means persecution. Another has said it literally means a man or a person who moans. So it signifies a person that has been roughly and harshly treated. And what we see throughout Job, before we get to the end, is Job felt that he was mistreated by God. He felt that God had been unfair. Has anyone other than me ever felt this way? Well, all of us at moments in our walk with God will feel overlooked. We will feel underappreciated, unrewarded. And if that's the case, join the club. And that man, Job, was blameless and upright. Now, he was one of the most generous men of his time. I mean, Job was as good gets. Let's take a look at Job chapter 29 and verse 12. Listen to what Job says about himself. And he says it under inspiration here. Because I delivered the poor who cried out, the fatherless, and the one who had no helper. So in a couple of verses, we're going to discover that Job was one of the most powerful men in the East. Yet he took pains to protect the vulnerable and the poor. And this is important. A leader is not measured by how many people serve him, but how many people he serves or she serves. The blessing of a perishing man came upon me, meaning Job even showed up, in people's deathbed, and he'd speak a blessing over their life. He said, and I caused the widow's heart to sing for joy. So he encouraged people that had been left behind in life. I put on righteousness, and it clothed me. My justice was like a robe and a turban. He was a leader with no regrets. I mean, he was able to sleep with a clear conscience. I was eyes to the blind, and I was feet to the lame. So again, he helped people who couldn't help themselves. And then he goes on. He says, I was a father to the poor. He was a role model to kids and the disadvantaged folks and people without. And I searched out the case that I did not know. The point is, Job was a bad boy. Job was doing his thing. He was living the life. But let's go back to Job chapter 1 and verse 1. It says, and Job feared God. So over the years, Job developed a deep reverential fear of God or reverence for God. His relationship was not shallow. His relationship was deep, and he had tremendous respect for the holy. But the next statement is really what's really uncommon today. It says, and he feared God, and watch this, and shunned evil. So he not only loved God, but he hated sin. The hatred of someone else's sin does not impress God as much as the hatred of your own sin. So Job was really living this thing, doing this thing, and let's keep watching what goes on in his life. Verse 2, Job had 7 sons, and in this time in history in an agricultural society, the number of sons you had represented the blessing of God in your life. And he also had 3 daughters that were born to him. So he had 3 little girls. So Job was the consummate family man. This picture of Job is really well-rounded. Also, his possessions were 7,000 sheep. So Job not only had a great family, great character and integrity, he had incredible wealth and prosperity. But wealth in this period was not measured by paper money like we might today. It was measured in land and livestock. So the Bible now is basically going into Job's bank account, explaining to us how rich Job was. So the number of sheep that was just mentioned is not about lamb chops. It's not about, wool. It's not about any of those things. But what it does here is it indicates how much land Job owned. So it required, a couple thousand acres to be able to support this many sheep. Remember, sheep roamed from place to place, and they needed grass to eat. And if he had this many sheep, he had a huge prospect of land. He also had 3,000 camels. Now, camels were the freight trains of the ancient world, and they traveled long distance without water, so he probably had business throughout the Middle East as well as throughout northern Africa. He had 500 yoke of oxen. Now, oxen were used to plow the land, and in fact, we get the term acre from the amount of land that an ox could plow in a day. So for him to have 500 oxen, that speaks of a whole lot of land. And then he goes on and says he had 500 donkeys. Now, this may surprise you a little bit, but back then, donkeys not only did work, but they were prized for their milk. And I know you're used to cow's milk and goat's milk, maybe. Actually, even to this day, donkeys are actually milked, and people live off of their milk. And a very, very large household, meaning he had a lot of servants, or he had a company, with thousands of employees, if you put it in today's context. So we see here that Job was an emir, or Job was a king. Watch what it says. So that this man was the greatest or the wealthiest. He was the most prominent man of all the people. Job was just not the average guy. This guy was like the Solomon of his day in the East, and he was the greatest, again, of everyone in that part of the world. But here's what I want you to think about even before we go on. The idea that wealth is always evil is absolutely unbiblical and a little bit naive. There's no problem with having money as long as money does not have you. So when God blesses you financially, don't just raise your standard of living, raise your standard of giving. And we see with Job did not only possess great means, he also shared and gave generously of his means to the community and the people around him. Let's get back to Job's family, verse 4. And his sons would go and feast in their houses, each on his appointed day. So his kids liked to party, a lot like some of our kids. And he would send and invite their 3 sisters to eat and drink with them. So this was a tight-knit clan, and they still did things together, which is great. So it was, when the days of feasting had run their course, that Job would send and sanctify them. So he took being a dad seriously. Mama needs to do what mama needs to do, but daddies also need to do what daddies need to do. And daddy would check up on the kids and make sure they were doing the right thing. And you need to make sure your kids are in church. Now, right now, they can't physically be in church, but sit with them as your live stream so so they can learn this word. Even if they don't get it, let them be exposed to it, because later in life, a lot of what they learn now actually God will use to be that moment or bring to remembrance, as we've been speaking about what the Holy Spirit does. He'll bring to remembrance some of the scriptures that were taught that will lead them in that moment. And if you train a child in the way he should go, when he gets old, he'll not depart. So make sure you are not just letting the TV or the computer babysit your children. Make sure that your kids are spending some time in the Word every week.
You're watching the Live Big broadcast. Stay tuned for the second half of this important teaching.
Check out the Grier Ministries YouTube channel. Revisit your favorite moments from the Live Big broadcast and watch popular teachings. Get in the now hot takes and dive into Bishop Grier's Ministry Minutes and bite-sized noonday teachings that can only be found online. Get all of this and more at home or while on the go. So, subscribe to the Grier Ministries YouTube channel and hit the notification bell to get fresh content from Grier that will help you grow stronger, live bigger, and get closer to God.
So again, Job was being a father, and he'd rise early in the morning and offer burnt offerings according to the number of them all, not just the boys, but also the girls. And we're not the first generation to worry about our children. Job was concerned about his kids, and he would try his best, to give offerings to God because he knew their bent. For Job said, "It may be that my sons have sinned and cursed God in their heart." So he knew that his children had a reckless streak in them. And we must be honest with ourselves about our kids and about who they really are, not just who we want them to be. And some parents, they're so, I don't know what it is, but they can't see their kid for what it is, and they act like their kids are angels. So, if there's a problem in school, they go and argue with the teacher instead of admitting the fact, you know what, my kid probably did that. They go and they fight with the teacher, and the kid basically learns that he doesn't have to yield to authority, submit to authority. Yes, sometimes teachers are wrong, and yes, sometimes you need to push back. I know I have at certain times in my kids' journey, but the reality is my kids were not always who I wanted them to be. They were who they were. And the reality is they grew into great men, and I'm so proud of them, but it was a journey. Let's keep reading. Thus Job did regularly. So far we see a good man, a vigilant father, a fun-loving family. Who could have asked for more? But now we're about to see the clouds roll in. Watch what happens. Verse 6. Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord. Now this is imagery that might be a little difficult for us, but the imagery here is an Eastern king holding court. I think probably the best way to describe this would be like our president calling a cabinet meeting. So he's calling all the leaders in the nation before him, and watch who comes in. And Satan also came in among them. So the cabinet walked in, but behind walked in stinky Osama bin Laden. And you think he shout for security, but surprisingly he doesn't. Watch what happens. And the Lord said to Satan. The first time I read this really bothered me. Why didn't God just throw him out? I mean, why is God having a conversation with the devil? Then it dawned on me, it finally hit me. God didn't react to the devil because he wasn't threatened by the devil. Now, the devil may scare us, but he doesn't alarm God at all. And the Lord said to Satan, he wasn't nervous. He was like, oh my gosh, none of that. He actually has a conversation. He said to Satan, hey, Stinky, where you been? From where do you come? And immediately, by God asking this question, we see who's in control. God was the interrogator, not the interrogated. Satan had to answer to him. So Satan did what? He did what he better had done. He answered the Lord and said, well, I've been going to and fro on the earth and from walking back and forth on it. Now, even the devil must give an account to God. So you better believe those of us that act like the devil are going to also have to give an account to God. Then the Lord said to Satan, how many of us realize that when God asks a question, it's not because he doesn't know the answer. He's trying to locate us. He's working on something. And he said, have you, Satan, you have the audacity to show up here. I have a question for you. Have you considered, and actually we're about to see, he was taunting the devil. Have you considered my servant Job? A more literal reading of what God said to the devil there is, haven't you set your heart on my servant Job? One more time. Haven't you, devil, haven't you been longing to get your hands on my servant Job? So what we see is, for years, Satan was like a three-legged cat who just couldn't catch the mouse. He was very frustrated and flustered because he really couldn't get his hands on the mind and character of Job. You see, evil always wants most what evil cannot have. And then he said, I know you want Job. I know you lust after him and you want him to be just like you. But God starts bragging on Job. He says, there is none like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man, one who fears God and shuns evil. God might as well have smacked the devil in the face when he said that, because he just publicly exposed before all the angels watching, everyone in the cabinet, if you will, that the devil had been impotent, that the devil had been ineffective in Job's life. So Satan at this moment is embarrassed. God is very confident in what he's placed in Job, verse 9. So Satan answered the Lord and immediately got on the defensive, and he said, does Job fear God for nothing? Now, the devil is a sourpuss. He is a cynic. Immediately he throws shade, because that's what he does and that's who he is. He couldn't attack Job's deeds because they were undeniable, but what he did do is attack his motivation. And, when folks disagree with me, I get that, but when they start disagreeing with motives, that's a little harder to get past. A guy sent a greeting card to an ex-friend, and on the outside it said, jealousy is a disease. On the inside it said, get well soon. And this is what's going on here. Verse 10, have you not made a hedge around him? Satan is jealous of the holiness in this man's life, the protection that God's placed on his life. And God had protected Job like a child. And you've also put this hedge around his household. So God not only cares about us as individuals, he cares about our families. And around all that he has on every side. So he cares about us, our families, and even our stuff. You have, and you can hear the venom in Satan's voice. He's upset about this. You have blessed this man, Job. The most important thing in my life is not my giftings, but the blessings of the Lord God in my life. See, Satan may take my stuff, but if I keep God's blessing, I'll get it back. And here, Satan, again, his head is blowing up. I mean, he wants to say some words here. Skip to verse 11. Watch what he does. He tries to incite God against Job. But now, stretch out your hand and touch all that he has. It's like, God, you know he's not that good. God, you know he's had or done some wrong. And he plays on the frailty of humans, and he recognized that God has a right to strike all of us dead, even a man like Job. He said, God, you have a right to do this. Touch all he has, and surely this man that you love so much, this man that you're boasting about, this man that you're trying to embarrass me over, surely this man, I'll embarrass you, will curse you to your face. Satan is so dark. He only sees the bad in anything good. And he tried to get God to hurt Job. But if you read that wrong, as many people do, you'll become confused, because God refused actually to do what Satan asked God to do to Job. Watch what the Lord does do. And the Lord said to Satan, said to who? Satan, He's like saying, you don't scare me in the least, whose mine is mine. Behold, all that he has is in your power. Devil, I'm just going to let you do you. Devil, I'm not going to touch him. But devil, you're so convinced about, your power to deceive. I'm going to let you do you. But here's what, that's upsetting to us to hear that. But here's what you need to know about God. If he leads you into a test, it's because he knows what's prepared for you on the other side of that test. At this point, most feel sorry for Job, but don't feel sorry for Job. God promised a safe landing, not always a calm passage. And here, God sees the end from the beginning. And he knew what was in Job, and he knew how Job would end. So for us, we're just thinking of the middle, and we don't really see the end of the things the way God sees the ends of the things, or the end of things. And because of that, we get upset. But God was like, you know what? I see all this trouble, but at the end, I also see his double. And likewise, you might be facing some things. You're like, God, why? How did this happen? Lord, if you love me, it wouldn't be so. Well, God doesn't just see what you're going through. He sees the end of the thing. And he also knows what he put in you to get through that thing. Let's just stay, because I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's stay with the scriptures here. He said, behold, all that he has is in your power. Only do not lay a hand on his person. So as bad as it got for Job, and as bad as it may have gotten for some of us, Satan was still on a leash. The devil could only go so far. So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord to do what the devil does. He's a bad devil. He's a mean devil, and he was just being a devil. And Job was about to lose his family. Job was about to lose his fortune and his health. Matter of fact, his closest friends were about to turn on him. But God knew what he put in Job, and God knows what he put in you, and Job stayed the course. You see, most of us want to serve God, but only in an advisory position. As long as he does what we want, the way we want, when we want, how we want to serve God. But the moment God makes an executive decision, the moment God makes a decision from his vantage point and not ours, we start to question our commitment. Job did not have the privilege of reading the end of the book. We have the privilege of reading the end of the book. And the thing is, in the middle of our situation, we don't have the privilege of reading the end of the book. All we can do is believe the promises. So while he's going through this struggle, he doesn't get it. He's throwing dust in the air. He's trying to make sense of it. He's arguing with people. And Job is in an emotional state. But I want us to get to verse 10, because this is where God wants to get. If you be faithful in the middle, God will get you to the end of it. And the Lord restored Job's losses. You see, God knew Job's end.
That was incredible. There were some valuable lessons that I learned during today's teaching. First, I learned that God doesn't always do things in the way we think he should. Also, I learned that if God leads us into a test, it's because he knows what's on the other side of that test, including our reward. When we encounter a difficult time, it's good to know that God is always at work in our lives and has a plan for each of us. We only need to remain faithful, and we will level up when we let go of the past and turn our attention to moving into the future that God has in store for us. And before I go, I want to tell you about a book my dad poured his soul into, When God Stops. It's the story of what 8 figures in the Bible did to get God's attention and have him stop to address their particular situations. Also, in this book, my dad shares details about his own personal experiences with God. If you are looking to jumpstart your faith and take things to another level, get your copy of When God Stops. The announcer is coming with more information.
Question: how do you get God to stop for you and give special attention to your situation? What does it take to stand out in the crowd and get God-sized results? Find the answers to these questions and more in Dr. Derek Grier's latest book, When God Stops. This one-of-a-kind book highlights 8 hidden figures from the Bible who show us how to dream, think, and live the type of life that God not only notices, but one that He rewards. Not only that, but in this book, Dr. Grier shares his personal journey like he never has before. Hear his testimony and go beyond what you see to get the real story behind Dr. Grier's most life-changing moments with God. So jumpstart your faith today. Learn how to get God's special attention and see God-sized results in your life. Go to WhenGodStops.com today. That's WhenGodStops.com to find out more.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of Live Big. Until next time, I invite you to subscribe to the Derek Grier Ministries YouTube channel. There, throughout the week, you can revisit your favorite teachings. Also, you will get access to special videos that are designed to power you, your family, and your friends through the week. Best of all, it's free to subscribe. While you are there, be sure to hit the notification bell so you know when my dad has uploaded new content. Stay tuned for more information, and until next time, live big.
Check out the Derek Grier Ministries YouTube channel. Revisit your favorite moments from the Live Big broadcast and watch popular teachings. Get in the now hot takes and dive into Bishop Grier's Ministry Minute and bite-sized noonday teachings that can only be found online. Get all of this and more at home or while on the go. So, subscribe to the Derek Grier Ministries YouTube channel and hit the notification bell to get fresh content from Derek Grier that will help you grow stronger, live bigger, and get closer to God.
Connect with Derek Grier Ministries on social media to access Bishop Grier's latest teachings and content. Follow on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Also, be sure to subscribe to Bishop Grier's YouTube channel at Dr. Derek Grier VA and get the latest episodes, ministry minutes, noonday teachings, and more. While you're there, be sure to hit that notification bell to find out when Bishop Grier's latest power-packed videos are uploaded. So subscribe and get ready to propel your spiritual life forward in 2021 and beyond.
Derek Grier Ministries is certified by the ECFA. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time on Live Big with Derek Grier.